I encountered a creature that feeds on memories. Written by Scary Max. I was not born with the ability to see the memory feeders. It's something that came to me when I was 5, after a beating from my maternal grandfather left me close to death. When I woke up in the hospital, I saw one of the creatures for the first time. At first I thought it was a bird, looking out at me through the air vent. It made jerky movements and twisted its head at impossible angles. Then it flattened itself as thin as a stingray and seeped out the vent, entering my hospital room, where it flew down and landed on my grandfather's shoulder as he slept. Then it opened its mouth and stuck its long tongue into his ear. I sat there, holding my hospital blanket tight. I would have screamed, except my lips were so swollen I could barely open my mouth. And so I just sat there, shaking, trying not to make a sound. When the police visited my room and asked my grandfather what had happened to me, he told them, "I don't remember." And he was telling the truth. I work in hospice care now, in a large city. We specialize in family work, and many of our clients are in their 40s and 50s. The creatures love to feed here, because the memories are fresh and whole. Over time, I've learned their habits. They prefer the taste of happy memories: weddings, births, birthdays, graduations. There are some clients they just won't touch. The dying men with no families and hollow eyes might as well be rotten meat to the memory eaters. I generally don't interfere with the creatures feeding. My clients are generally so close to death that I figured they have a few memories to spare. What's the harm if a Christmas morning gets forgotten? And if I'm being honest, maybe I've been jealous. Because I'm rotten meat. I search and search, and all I find are bad memories. My mom's OD. My grandparents' resentment. My dad visiting dead drunk, shouting into the night. The feeders avoid me like I'm radioactive. I do try to keep the feeders away from visitors. The creatures can hardly contain themselves when children's footsteps come thumping down the hall, eager to see mom or grandma. If I'm not careful, the creatures will descend from the vents and feed on the first time Emma saw snow, or that Friday Samuel skipped school and cuddled with mom on the couch all day. In general, a vacuum is enough to scare them off. So if I see them eyeing a child's ear, I'll head into the room and get busy, even if it interrupts a tender conversation between mother and son. Sometimes, though, the creatures cling to their victims like addicts, and I have to take more drastic action. I found that I can grab them by the wings and fling them out the window. Once or twice, I've killed them, snapping their necks, but afterwards, the stench smell of sulfur was overpowering, and it took weeks of scrubbing my hands before they felt clean. Overall, I would say we'd had an uneasy truce, until last week. A teenage girl snuck in after hours. She was basically an angel in human form. Star student, constantly volunteering at the local humane society. Her dad had been a beloved high school teacher until he drew the wrong card and ended up with stage 4 liver cancer. And he didn't even drink. The girl was convinced that it was Dad's last night on Earth and couldn't bear the thought of him dying without her there. So she snuck into the facility. I'm still not sure how. When I found her, she was sleeping in a chair in her dad's room. And perched on her shoulder was the biggest memory eater I'd ever seen. It was big as a condor, wings stretching maybe 4 feet wide. It knelt over the girl with its worm-like tongue pulsing in her ear as memories flowed down its throat. It met my eyes as it drank, and for the first time since my childhood I was afraid of one. This was no little bird I could fling out the window. This one would fight. This one could kill me. I stood there shaking as the creature stared at me with its black eyes, warning me that one more step would mean death. I started to back away. If I left things as they were, no one would ever know. Even the girl might go through her whole life, never realizing what had happened, what she was missing. Something in me couldn't do it. No matter how much I wanted to run, I wouldn't let myself. And so I charged forward, tacking the creature off the girl. It clawed at me with its talons, ripping my arms. They stung with invisible wounds, like I'd been lashed with invisible whips. It bit at me too, trying to blind me with its beak. When that didn't work, it unleashed its tongue, licking at my face, its saliva burning me like acid. Holding its body off with my left hand, I reached forward with my right, grabbing the creature's tongue. Then I wrapped it around my arm over and over, gritting my teeth as the acid seeped through my skin. As it did, I began to realize I was forgetting. My mother was the first to go. I still had the awareness of her overdose, but the details began to grow fuzzy. Once, I'd remembered the exact angle of her body. Some kind of smell that surrounded her. Some kind of last words she'd written. Now they were all disappearing down the creature's throat. And as it ate them, it gagged, like it had eaten vomit. The creature tried to pull away, but I kept holding its tongue. The memories all began to disappear. My grandparents were sucked out little by little until all that remained was some vague bullet points, like they were a movie I'd seen in my youth and then forgotten. Then my dad was gone too, and all the bullying through middle school. The dark things I thought about in high school too. The years lost and wandering before I finally got my shit together and made it into nursing school. The creature was weak on its feet now, barely able to stand. And finally it fell to the floor, dead and bloated. As I unleashed its tongue, a wave of tiredness washed over me, and I closed my eyes. I don't see the creatures anymore. But maybe there are things we're not meant to see. Even now, I can feel the shape of them fading from my mind. I guess that's part of why I'm writing this down, in case I forget them entirely. I'm ready to forget. There's a kind of bliss in it. Ever since that night, I walk the halls of the hospice, and I don't feel heavy anymore. I never used to hug the grieving families, but now I do. When that teen girl's father died, I held her close as she wept in my arms, and she kept saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Had she woken up? Had she seen the fight? Or was she thanking me for something else? And in truth, I could barely remember what I'd done.